Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to the Gundam Explained show. I'm your host, Adam Blue. Joining me, Steven of Midnight Hatter. What's up, man?
Not a lot, hanging out. Looking
Yeah.
forward to another great Gundam evening.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be talking about a little bit of the movie because I did that video this week that's an example of like unplanned content. It was an interview with Jim Mickle. I'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk a little bit about G-Quux, but if you really want to get a super detailed critical breakdown, and it's leaning on the negative side, but I think it's for good reason because we're kind of doing a critical analysis.
Yeah.
Steven's show yesterday.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because honestly, you and I are both such big Gundam fans, and we're both big UC nerds. Like that's at our heart. Like we want more UC content, and so it's when we get critical of Gundam stuff coming out, it
Passionate.
comes from a place of love, tough love.
Exactly. Tough love. But and anyway, and as we go, I want to interact with chat more, but my plan is end of the show or like near the end of the show, I'll start going through the chat from the beginning and we'll see what hot takes people can't defend anymore. And then but along the way, if you're a supporter, sup Lucas Garrett, or have a super chat, I'll read them as we go, just to kind of give this a little bit more of a flow.
Yeah, good ground rules.
Yeah, but to start, when it comes to Gundam things we've gotten into this week, it was a little bit, and I guess it really started with we had the Father's Day going on.
Yeah.
What was cool when we were talking was you had built 2 kits.
Yeah, which is insane for me. Like I don't think I've built 2 kits in a sitting like in my life. But yeah, so I mean, I've got them sitting here on the desk. We've got the high grade premium Bandai Desultor from Witch from Mercury. Just an awesome kit. Like I said, it's like the Witch from Mercury equivalent of the high grade ground type Gundam. It's got like missile launchers, the bazooka, and it does something that I know you're gonna love, Adam. The backpack has hard points for you to attach the machine gun, the bazooka, the troop carrier backpack. So like you can equip it. Like this thing comes fully loaded. It's a fantastic piece.
That I have to grab that now. I mean, I always thought it looked great, and I was like, yeah, eventually I'll get it. But yeah, the details of the gimmicks. And it's funny because I feel like sometimes when I buy a kit, unless it's specific to the mobile suit, I'm not really thinking, oh, I wonder if it does this, that, or the other. And then sometimes I'm building it, I'm like, oh, wow. So it has this part to it. And those are always little.
Well, that's something that we talked about, like when the G-Quux line of kits came out, right? Because we were wondering, like, well, why does the G-Quux have beam sabers and a heat hawk? Like, why does it have these different things with it? And it's because you're equipped to recreate scenes from the anime, and then likewise, I think the Red Gundam has different decals. It has versions of the decals from like during the 1 Year War where it's like a nice clean Xeon crest, but then it also has like the weathered one for like the 0085 version, so that you can make it like Shuji's Red Gundam or you can make it Char's Red Gundam, which is a cool thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Again, some more gimmicks, although I hate that because it's like, give me multiple pieces of the part so I can swap it.
Yeah, man, I gotta tell you, like, I hate being forced to choose, like, especially with Exam or Hades style kits, like the Blue Destiny and Toad's Ritter and things like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, but yeah, no, that's cool. And then you had that other one, right, that you built?
Yeah. So here we've got the Ilfrith pre-production type, also from Witch from Mercury. This one was actually gifted to me from Principality New York, so shout out to Zeonic Shadow and the boys, because when I saw this, I was like, this is the first Witch from Mercury kit that I'm like, okay, I can get behind this. It's got like kind of a Zazabi style backpack.
Yeah, which, let me look at something. It reminds me of the Gundam Mark V.
Yeah, that's actually a very astute observation. And fun fact, it actually comes with the parts to make it into a standard Ilfrith. So I only recently found that out when I was putting it together, is it comes with like an alternate head and an alternate chest piece that kind of is in line with the regular Ilfrith. It doesn't have like the Ilfrith bits, but
Yeah, I know, more Witch from Mercury slander. I'm joking. But no, positive notes on your show yesterday. I guess because you were saying how you're watching it while, you know,
Yeah,
feeding
as
the baby
part
or
of
something.
like my quest to customize these kits, I'm like, okay, well, I want to make it look like, from the anime. After
Yeah.
talking with Pencil Knights on the channel,
Oh yeah.
and he was like, oh, I want to make the Calibarn look exactly how it looks in the anime. I'm like, well, I got to watch the anime again so that I can.
No, I like that. I remember when he brought that up, and that's kind of my thing. When I build, I try to make it look accurate and then
Yeah,
move on.
ver anime, right?
Yeah, very anime. Yeah. Okay, and then for me,
Yeah,
you
what did
know,
you get into?
yeah, I went to the Grapevine Mills Mall that's nearby, and I actually have a video out already of the Kunio Okawara designed Chinese New Year Gundam. So they're fun. I was actually just surprised to see it in
Yeah,
the store. Was not expecting that. So I got a couple reviews up, and then I got this other thing. It's like an SD thing. It's SD Gundam, but I couldn't even tell you what Gundam it's from. A review video of that sometime. I'm not going to show it here yet, but I'm trying to think of anything else. So yeah, I'm going to talk about Sunday night. I know it was Father's Day, but that night I ended up having an anime night, which it's something I've always, and maybe the past year or 6 months, it's like I need to make more in person connections and stuff. And so I had 3 people come over, and one being Goji FX, Andrew, that
oh,
does the
awesome.
3D
Yeah.
printing Godzilla stuff. He came over and we all watched Evangelion 1:11 UR parentheses not and parentheses alone. If
Okay, so is this like a George Lucas style title, right? Like,
Exactly. It is. You've nailed it. I actually never thought about explaining because I'm like, well, it's a remake or not a remake. It's like it's kind of like redone. And how do you explain it? Special edition.
there you go.
Although Ultronymous probably knows how to. Well, he even just says, remember to stick around after the credits for the next Evangelion films. Wait, what do you mean?
You missed
After
the post-credit scene. Look at that.
Is there really a post-credit scene? And oh my gosh, I'm glad I know now. Anyway, so it was a lot of fun. And what actually helped, I meant to do this anime night earlier, but I forgot if I talked about it on here. But my TV breaking, like,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the backlight went out in the TV in the living room, and I didn't know what to do. How did it work? We went to Best Buy, bought a new one because we figured, oh, it's just old. Yeah, because that TV was already like 4 or 5 years old at that point. So the one we bought at Best Buy, it wasn't working. Same thing, the backlight going out. So we took it back to Best Buy. They plugged it in and it worked. And I'm like, all right, I'll just take it back home and figure it out. Take it home, not working. Call the electrician. Your electricity's fine. Call Samsung. They eventually come out and replace a part on the board, and it works. He doesn't know why. Why not even the part? It's like, yeah, the part just doesn't work, but there's no signs of what happened to it. So
Interesting.
I know it's all odd. I'm thinking maybe some sort of power surge happened at my house at some point.
Got to be
or
something like that
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, thank God for Geek Squad.
Yeah, actually, it was Samsung.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, so Best Buy blew it.
Yeah, no, really, because after the first time we didn't go back, but I opened a case with him, like, sorry, it's outside of the window. And I'm like, dang, that sucks because it's such a pain in the ass to schedule time to lug a TV around for repair. And a 65-inch TV, it's a big TV. And
Yeah.
The only reason that we have the 65-inch TV, I think, is because, like, when we first moved into this house, Target, had a Black Friday 65-inch TV for like $400. Later you find out they're really crappy, but
Well, can we rewind for a second? Because you said that TV is only 4 or 5 years old, which isn't that like a crime that a TV only really lasts like 4 or 5 years? I mean, I think about the Samsung TV that we have. I mean, that was a TV that I had in college with my roommate, which, we're not going to talk about how long ago that was, but
I think it's because the TV I bought was the cheap Black Friday models, because they make them specifically to sell them on Black Friday.
Right.
Because, thinking back, we have our TVs for a long time. I think usually the only time I've upgraded was like new technology. I mean, even with this one, it's only 60 hertz. I wanted 120 hertz, but it was just getting into the price range that I didn't think was practical for our living room, since this was more for the family or when we have people come
Right.
around. But I've enjoyed actually spending time in the living room playing on the big screen. Also because I convinced my wife to take it down from hanging up high above the fireplace. It is not enjoyable to watch TV that way.
No, for sure. We actually both of our TVs are mounted above fireplaces, but one of them is actually the arm of it swings down so that when you're watching it, it comes down in
Oh,
front of the fireplace, and then you can raise it back up. So really,
dude, that is so cool that you've done that because I was thinking about that and thinking, is this possible? And I think my initial research, I couldn't find anything, but that's cool that you thought that and actually did that.
yeah,
I think that's a great idea because having a TV above a fireplace looks cool, except for when you're watching it.
yeah, everything about it is awesome except for actually using it.
Yeah,
Now,
I know.
and you said that you game on it, which is interesting
Yeah.
because like in my experience, like gaming on these larger TVs, like we have a 60-inch that I'm like, and it's above the fireplace. But I remember when we were playing Witcher 3, I could not read any of the UI because it's
It,
like optimized for like a
it
PC.
does depend on the game. And there was a time between, I remember as far back as Dead Rising, when, games started being HD, like on Xbox, is when you had text issues where and it's almost like, I feel like nowadays they add accessibility options to increase text size, but I feel like a lot of times it's still built for kind of what you're saying, more closer or like on a monitor or something.
Hmm.
But I like I like sitting in front of the 65-inch because I think our couch is just far enough away from it to where it is a really good spot. But
That's good.
anyway, it's this journey about repairing the TV has been fun. Getting back into playing video games in the living room has been fun. And then the anime night. So I'm gonna do it again Sunday. Sunday night. And here's another plan that I'm thinking of trying to do is actually streaming it in Discord when I do the anime
Interesting.
night. So there could be the live people, and then I'll have like the laptop open by the screen with Discord, so then people can chat. And
Conference call it.
yeah, I'm gonna look into doing that just to kind of make it seem bigger, more connected. But so the idea is we're either gonna watch the second Evangelion, or I think one of the people in the group didn't really care too much about Evangelion, and I think they wanted something else. So the deal would be like, yeah, we don't have to necessarily do sequels right away, like the next week,
That's fair.
because once a week is a lot anyway. Because
Yeah.
my wife is like, every Sunday? But I mean, she's cool with it. But she just
Isn't
thought,
that supposed to be family time?
yeah, I know, right? It's like family. What no. No, but I think she's pretty cool with it anyway, because it just felt nice just having
Yeah.
people around, and it's cool people.
What were the snacks? The snack situation.
Dude, I'm glad you asked, because at first I wasn't even gonna do snacks. My wife's like, you have to have snacks. Yeah, I guess so. She bought this tray that had like crackers, cheese, salami, chocolate covered pretzels.
Oof, that's good.
Yeah, and then she also, I think there was some fruit, that was some other thing. But she actually prepared this stuff, and even I was like, I don't, nah. But to be honest, people didn't really eat too much until near the end. But I still think it was good that was there as an option. I think I'm going to up the snack game next time, but also the choice of drinks. No alcohol or anything, but like maybe some sparkling water.
Yeah.
Yeah, fancy it up.
I think that's the way to go, man.
I just have to add this. I love if I'm at a restaurant, and this rarely happens, and they're like, would you like, and they're like, what would you like to drink? It'd be water. And they're like, would you like sparkling? And it's like, yes, please. But
Yeah.
that doesn't happen often.
Me.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I love sparkling water.
Oh yeah. My wife and I are big fans, and we tend to do that thing where we'll get like club sodas or, just like mineral waters and stuff. And then we'll like splash some lemon juice or something in to just kind of elevate them.
No, that is cool. Hey, by the way, shout out to Santo Bell in the chat. Heading to work, thought I'd say hi.
Oh,
well, that's
from
cool,
12
man.
hours in the future.
Dude, I know. The guy from Down Under, RG Savior. He got me that G Savior 3D model thing. So yeah, anyway, cool stuff. And maybe that could be a way to have additional content, because like I have that anime section in the Gundam Explained Discord, because I want to talk more anime specific, around Gundam. So
I like it, man.
yeah. Okay. Next up to talk about is I won't spend too much time on it, but the latest episode of G-Quux. I streamed it, the reaction of watching it, and it's probably my most reactive in terms of the things people want out of a reaction, and it was one of the highest rated of my reaction, even though it's like,
there you go.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to do with this content yet, but in it I start going like, you see my face like, why is this happening? No, oh come on. And it's like it slowly descended into speedrunning Zabi, Death of the Zabi Family. Like they just sped run that, when I felt like what was very interesting about the backbone of the story was the fact that the Zabi family was still around. But then Machu's not really the main character, and then that I don't think we landed on his name, but Olivier Xavier. Yeah. His character makes no sense in that episode at all. I thought it was a Shalia Xavier sort of like duo that made sense, mentor mentee. The Machu thing is more of the bright thing we talked about, whereas the Xavier Shalia is more of a traditional mentor mentee. Especially going through getting captured, by the Federation police, and then that whole thing.
And he started shaping up to be like a rival to Machu, because it's like, she almost usurped his position as the mentee to Shalia Bull. So it's like you could see why he might be annoyed at her.
But I feel like that just did not make sense, especially the understanding of new types at that point up between Xavier and Shalia. Like you would think he would be in a situation where, okay, Machu is part of our cause. But anyway, super deep dive on your channel if you guys are interested. And I guess I'll land with, I'm looking forward to watching the next episode. It could be schlocky fun. And I don't think we're going to get anything out of this, really just kind of a crazy little alt UC ride. But one thing that could happen is, what if it ends in a way where it's setting up a proper full series where we get all of these characters out of the way to then focus on Machu or Neon?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the showrunners really care about the main characters of the show that they've created. They really just only care about the UC stuff, and
to the point where Char magically gets his clothes on, which to me was kind of going super fantastical. Like, I can understand brainwaves and like that's getting pretty fantastical, but there's a science-y, ethereal element to it. But then ethereal, I meant to say. But then when you get to like someone's clothes coming on, he's like, "Oh, look at me! I've got my." I don't know. He didn't speak with English accent, but it was cool. But it's like, no, not here. But
yeah.
Anyway,
what can you do?
Deeper dive. I could keep going. Stop me, someone, and I will stop myself, because another video went out this week that has to do with the Gundam live action movie. Oh, hello from Ireland. I said I wouldn't call out anyone if they weren't a supporter, but Gareth is from Ireland, and that's pretty cool. There was a rumor they were going to film parts of the Gundam movie there. I think I made that up when I was trying to connect dots, but probably not true. Anyway, because there's Ireland is a main part if they get that far in the UC timeline.
That's true. Probably. It's interesting. So we have an Aussie and an Irishman in the chat, which both of them are probably going to be victims of colony drops at some point in the future.
Well, okay, so what was really neat was on Instagram, I came across, I feel bad for not remembering the name. It's this chef. I have the link to his Instagram in the description of my video. But basically what happened is, like a week ago, it was shown to me on Instagram, this dude going to do an interview with Jim Mickle. I think it's crazy that was pushed to me specifically. Do I talk about Jim Mickle to myself out loud and my phone's picking it up? It's like, ooh, Adam likes Jim Mickle. Let's push everything. No.
Does anybody talk about Jim Mickle that much?
Well, right. Because it's not like he's super well known. And this is what I think is interesting about learning about him.
Talented.
Yeah. No, that's what's interesting about this, which I'm going to bring up your point that I wasn't thinking, but we'll get to that. So I think it was just, yesterday. Then that interview pops up in my feed. And I'm like, oh, I totally forgot this happened. And I'm like, when is he going to talk? Well, no, I was like, at what point does he talk about Gundam? So just for fun, I just skipped near the end and he goes, well, what do you have working on next? And then he starts going into it. And I'm like, reaction time, turn on my camera, I film it. And so basically in this, it's almost like the confirmation we need. The director saying, I'm making a Gundam movie. We're trying to figure out how to make it work. And I love how he said framing. As a filmmaking buff myself, I love when you're taking in consideration the camera, the look, how the shot is being pulled off. And that's actually what the original Gundam excelled at.
Yeah.
Everything was framed cinematically. That's why when people say, oh, you can't translate it, it's like, no, out of any anime you could transfer to live action, Gundam was almost shot like a cinematic movie. Just think of Amuro landing.
Tomino himself, he frequently said that he wanted to work in movies, and he just worked in anime because it was cheaper and it was easier for him to get in.
And it was the way he was sneaking in his creativeness in the first place was using this, so he was able to go all out with Gundam. And you brought up something really cool yesterday that I didn't really consider, because you were like, well, in the interview, it's not like he's really saying he's like a fan or anything, a fan of Gundam. He hasn't really known it for a while. And it's like, oh yeah, does it matter if they're a fan or not? Because sometimes it's like, well, if they're not a fan, maybe it's not going to be good. And like, do we need a fan to make Star Wars or whatever? And like, there's the contention with Dave Filoni, but then there's Andor, which was made by someone that doesn't consider themselves a Star Wars fan. They are a filmmaker first, or a script writer, a writer first, but they have the right team around them to fulfill that vision. And so once you brought that up, that aligned with how I see Jim Mickle, because when I originally did research into him, I heard, oh, Sweet Tooth is some comic book that was being adapted. Well, that's not too far removed from adapting an anime. Let me look at what the cinematography looks like. And that intro of Sweet Tooth, I didn't watch the rest of it. I kind of don't really care. But
you're not missing too much.
Well, from what I saw, it's like, dude, A game on production value, A game on acting, A game on the pace, the intent. Like, it's almost like Sunrise decided to take their time and like, who should direct this? Yeah, Jordan Vogt-Roberts is a fan, but what if he's trying to inject fan fiction? Whereas Jim Mickle's like, we're trying to figure out how to frame everything. So the idea is we want to hire this visionary to be able to bring to life the cinematic framing that Tomino envisioned in Gundam to live action. But again, this is assuming original UC 0079.
Now, that makes me wonder, though, so another great example before I mention it is Irving Kershner, Empire Strikes Back. Like, obviously, he's a guy that came in, he's like, I don't know what Star Wars is, but I know how to make a great movie. Boom. Fantastic job, right?
And before we move on, RoboCop 2.
And RoboCop 2. Yeah, he's like the sequel.
They didn't have someone to direct RoboCop 2, so they hired him. Remember, he wasn't part of the Directors Guild either. Wasn't that the thing too? So he's almost like a for hire to get done what needs to get done. And RoboCop 2 is a very passable remake of RoboCop 1.
Yeah, for sure. And so, there is the question like, did the studio have creative differences with Vogt-Roberts, where it's like, how many directors did they fly through with like Solo and with it was just Solo that had like the directorial changes.
It was Phil Miller, whatever, Lord, and then Ron Howard came in, which you would think Ron Howard. I mean, to be honest, I like Solo. I feel like it got dogged on way too much.
Yeah, it had the unfortunate fate of coming out after Last Jedi. I think it's a great
Yeah.
sci-fi movie. I just don't think it's a great
Right.
solo story. Yeah.
Exactly. I would say that because the writing between Han and the girl, it's like an interesting sci-fi love story, but not, I can see what you're saying. And for me, it's passable because it has enough of the cool Star Wars adventuring.
Yeah, and it does have some good ship scenes, which
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that is not what's going on with the Gundam movie, where like the studio is trying to impose things, and like, you know, I do want Jim Mickle to be able to express his vision for what he thinks is going to be the strongest Gundam film, and that he's not just going to be kind of browbeaten into,
or almost like it seems like with a Marvel movie where they're hiring the director just to kind of get it done. It's just I feel like Jim Mickle just has, it's interesting. I feel like he has a bit more pedigree, but I don't know where that's coming from necessarily. Maybe it's how he composes himself. Maybe it's from what I've seen, but almost to where Disney wouldn't hire him because he would be competent, but almost too practical and telling Disney, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to, you know what I mean? I feel like that's the,
he strikes me as a very professional guy. Like he's not going to rock the boat intentionally, but and I think that those are the perfect, that's the guy you want to work with. You don't want to work with, like, as much as I love like Sam Raimi, like Sam Raimi's a kind of guy that, like,
I love Sam Raimi, dude.
Yeah, but you're not going to tell him what to do.
What?
But you're not going to tell him what to do. Like,
yes, exactly. So that's that's very interesting. That's why I found it interesting that Disney hired Sam Raimi. But I think it's because Sam Raimi is also business minded, so he knows what Disney wants. He's like a Tomino, where then he can sneak in his thing. Like as Army of Darkness being one of my top 3 movies of all time, Multiverse of Madness is an Army of Darkness retelling. It even has evil.
It's got Deadites.
Yeah, it has the evil Doctor Strange, like Evil Ash. They did the same story. But going through time or dimensions. I got to watch it again. But and it's interesting because a lot of people, I should say a lot, like online, typically people aren't like, oh, Multiverse of Madness was great, But I didn't watch the Wanda show, and I think people were expecting some connection. So
yeah, I think that there was, and that's part of the danger of existing within a cinematic universe, is that everything has to kind of tie together neatly with a bow. And I think that the glory days of just having like a movie that's a standalone piece of a larger franchise that doesn't have those ties are kind of far behind us.
Yeah,
for better or worse.
The other thing I want to bring up too is if we look at Legendary as a studio, even from, and I think someone reminded me of this in the comment of the video. Sometimes comments are good. And the guy was like, remember, Sunrise is actually in control of this. They've chosen Legendary as their Hollywood arm to make. And if you think of what Legendary does, the Kong, they saw how, or not Godzilla, they saw how successful they were able to help Toho bring the Godzilla, make it more popular. So I think Legendary has a track record of doing good.
Well, they also did the Enola Holmes movies.
Okay, I liked the first one, but I'm a Sherlock Holmes stan.
Oh yeah,
and I think I'm secretly a Henry Cavill stan.
Secretly,
because I'd never think about him. But then when I hear about him, I'm like, dude, that guy's badass. He could be in this. He could be in this.
Yeah, I love Henry Cavill. I would never have picked him as a Sherlock Holmes type. He seems a little too.
But I think it's because, well, at least to me, I feel like he can pull off any acting. Like when he was in Man from U.N.C.L.E., he was like James Bond type, and then when he's the bad guy in Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah.
Even as Superman.
Yeah.
You know how much humanity he was giving Superman? I felt like that was more than most superhero. I do think I love all this off-topicness. I do think it's a shame what happened to the Snyderverse. Even though I don't really care about DC. Yeah. I remember when Batman vs Superman first came out. Like I had seen Man of Steel, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I love how they do I love how they do the fighting of a superhero, like, because they're like
Yeah.
quick and, and then BVS came out, Batman vs Superman, and everyone's saying, oh, it's bad, don't watch it. And I was like, okay. And then one day I'm watching it. In the beginning of Batman vs Superman is Bruce Wayne driving through a city of a disaster scenario because Superman's fighting someone. And to me, that was the most brilliant storytelling piece right there.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. It reminds me a lot of like Back to the Future 2 specifically.
Oh, yes.
Because it's like the first movie, you had all these events happen, and in Back to the Future 2, you're re-experiencing those events with added context and like.
I know. I love that stuff, man. That made me think I would love to come up with a story just so I can add that element to it.
Yeah.
Because did you ever see a movie called, I could be wrong, it might be called Time Crimes?
I'm not familiar with that.
I kind of forget the premise, but I want to say it's some self-fulfilling prophecy where this guy sees this other guy and he's paranoid, so he goes to try to kill him. And I guess you find out later it's himself going into the future or something.
Oh, man.
And and I was like, okay, I totally forgot. This was like 20 years ago.
So kind of like Looper.
I didn't see Looper. Is that with Hayden Christensen?
No, Looper was the one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah. And then I think they did a similar movie where it's like Will Smith is like going back in time.
Gemini Man.
Gemini Man. There you go.
I never saw that either. Okay, I need to see Gemini Man. Looper, it's funny. I did not get the hype.
Yeah, it was okay.
It's a Rian Johnson movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, movie talk. That was fun. Guys, I am going to be on top of the Gundam movie news. So, I mean, if you guys are fascinated about the movie news, that's always going to be the added content until it starts becoming main stuff.
I was going to say that was like what spawned your channel was the Gundam movie, which is
exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
I wanted to make one. Yeah. And I was like, and then they were like, no, we're going to make one. I was like, oh, I want to cover the making of this. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Let me think. Okay, let's move on. Next topic. I think this is pretty interesting. In chat, throw in your stuff. I'll read it at the end, or if it's a super, or I don't want to sell. I'm not going to do that. Okay. For this, I want to talk about transforming mobile suits because as much as I love them, I don't like it when it's impractical. But I don't necessarily think about that too much, except for when I am handling a Zeta action figure. But
you had to just bring up the Zeta, didn't you?
But hear me out though. I would say they made it the way they did in the animation because it can make sense. The afterthought was the model kit.
Right. Well, so, and that raises my question to you is how do you define practical? Is it that it makes sense in universe for why it transforms, or is it the transformation mechanism itself? Is that transformation mechanism practical?
Okay, that's a good idea. So let's go through this list, and it has some whys, and I want to see what you think or chat. So to start, we're going to order. We're going to start with most plausible. And number one is the Zeta Gundam. Okay.
There you go.
Here's why. The transformation is relatively straightforward, essentially folding the limbs and reconfiguring it into a sleek fighter mode. The Wave Rider form provides genuine tactical advantages with high-speed atmospheric flight and space maneuverability. The mechanical complexity, while significant, seems achievable. What is your thought on that?
I mean, in my opinion, it's one of the more complex transformation processes. Like, the idea is obviously that they took the flying armor, which was used for atmospheric entry, and they were like, well, how can we just attach it to a Gundam? And so they said, let's make it into a backpack. But then they couldn't figure out how to get the backpack around to the front. And so then, Camille said, hey, let's cut it in half and just fold it around onto the armpits. And it's like, of course, that makes perfect sense.
Well, here's another thing too. And this is going to be hard to do. So bear with me.
Yeah.
Think of how the Zeta Gundam is designed outside of Gundam. It really doesn't look like anything else. Now, yeah, later Zeta style faces, but when we're talking about the backpack setup, it is so different that it like fits that transformation.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, because that backpack is so different than anything.
Yeah, even other transforming suits typically have the wings oriented the opposite
Right.
way, or sometimes like in Seed they'll be like
Just on the backpack.
horizontal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I can understand. Is it the most plausible? Because it seems the most, what do they say in this, significant or complex?
Yeah.
But maybe the complexity is what makes it plausible.
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, then let's look at the Methus. Simple
Okay.
transformation that mainly involves repositioning limbs and shifting the torso orientation. The resulting fighter mode is practical, and the transformation doesn't require overly complex joint mechanisms, which, yeah, it's almost like it was built to look like it only needs to transform a little bit or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It just kind of like folds.
Yeah. Okay. The Rizel, based on refined Zeta technology, it represents an evolution that addresses some of the original's complexity issues. The transformation is more streamlined, and the resulting flight mode maintains good combat capability. And I think a lot of the Zeta line,
because it's like the Rizel has more in common with the Methus than it does the Zeta.
you know what? Yeah, the look of it, the look of the, yeah, I'll have to look at the, no, actually, that is very interesting. The look of the body of the mobile suit of the Rizel isn't necessarily Zeta-like, but the transformation, is a little more on that. Yeah.
And they both have like the hook groin.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, here's what's moderately plausible. The double Zeta Gundam. More complex transformation involving the separation and recombination of multiple components. While the core fighter system has precedent, the full transformation requires precise coordination of many moving parts, increasing potential failure points. Yeah, once you get to
the anime, like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, the amount of times that they had to practice lining up, and that was cool.
Yeah, that's cool that they actually do feature that. Okay, the Delta Gundam. The transformation involves significant structural reconfiguration. While not impossibly complex, the resulting flight mode's advantages may not justify the mechanical complexity and weight penalties.
I mean, that's interesting.
I would have to look deeper into that, but that's, something.
I mean, they kind of arrived at that conclusion in the anime because then they just turned it into the Hyakushiki. Like,
oh, yeah, okay.
They were like,
That's
it's
right.
too much. Let's just make it a regular mobile suit.
No, good call on that because that's true. Okay, here's the least plausible. The Victory 2 Gundam. The transformation system is extremely complex, involving the separation of multiple subunits that must perfectly align. The precision required for reliable transformation in combat conditions stretches believability. And that's true. I know you've never watched Victory, you never would, but there are. It does the thing where, like, send out the legs, and then you see legs flying in the sky, and then it's like, okay, line up the lasers. It's.
Which is kind of funny because they did that in 0083, right? Like with the GPO-1 kind of has that, like the core fighter kind of docks.
Oh, yeah. And it's like huh. Okay, here's another one. The S Gundam. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Involves separating into multiple independent units, including the booster and core fighter, that must somehow maintain perfect coordination. The complexity of managing multiple separated components in combat scenarios is nearly prohibitive. The ranking considers factors like mechanical complexity, structural integrity during transformation, combat practicality, and maintenance requirements. Okay, so I think that's hit all that. Generally simpler transformations that provide clear tactile. Okay, so I guess with this, and I like this because this is more lore based. It's the tactical advantage that you get at the end of the day, which makes sense with the Zeta Gundam because it's just the efficient Wave Rider. In the S Gundam, I have actually not dived into that, but I think that's motivated me to make a video.
When you look at it, the S Gundam doesn't even look like it transforms.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not really messed with that much. Even though I'm recalling some gimmicks like the boosters and all that, but I'm gonna dive more into that one.
I have
Oh,
both high grade S Gundam and EXS Gundam that I haven't built yet.
you have them both. Oh man,
So I need to build those, and then maybe we can examine them in 3 dimensions.
yeah, dude. I can't believe you always have the good shit. Okay. This is from Lucas Garrett. When looking at the design of the Zeta Gundam, you have to look back at what came out between Mobile Suit Gundam and Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, the Valkyrie inspired. Good call because
Mm-hmm.
that's right. I remember watching, Macross, and I think that was 82. So that was before Zeta.
Well before.
And I remember being what's the word? I liked the designs. I thought it was I guess I was surprised at how it looked. The Valkyries are badass. That's a
They're heavily
badass.
grounded. Like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
they're so grounded
Yes.
that they're based on real planes that they
Yeah.
basically just put a backpack on. Like,
Yeah. And so that's a good one. The Valkyrie fighter inspired transforming mecha designs for the next 20 years. Wow. You know what? I never considered that, but a lot of times when in my mind, I'm picturing the perfect, coolest space combat mech, whatever. It's always, I tell you like F-18 Blue Angels, but I'm thinking decals on a canopy, and that's very Macross. How
yeah,
much through my youth has Macross, or I guess Robotech, maybe been all around me. That's kind of where I've drawn that enjoyment of. Yeah, because it was, and this is, again, I don't know too much about it, but I guess it was Robotech in the US combining Macross plus other shows,
yeah,
make a super
yeah,
show.
exactly.
Dude.
And
Oh, no,
go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, we should do a super show where we take our favorite animes and then try to cut a movie out of them.
Oh,
It
so
has to be,
we be Harmony Gold and like
yeah, it has to be 20 minutes from each movie,
not
and we have to
consecutive,
make it
but
work.
like, yeah,
Anyway, what were we
can
going
it
to
be
say?
done? I think it can be done.
Yeah, I think so. So if anyone out there wants to do it, but anyway, were you going to say something and I cut you off?
Well, yeah, I mean the Valkyrie is such a successful design that it's been like actually stolen. Like I think that you see a version of it in BattleTech. I think that you see a version of it in
Oh, yeah.
Transformers. The Transformer known as Jetfire or Skyfire, depending on which version of him you see, he is he basically is a Valkyrie toy that they said
Oh,
like, oh well, no one's using this toy design, so he's going to be our jet fighter called Skyfire.
that's very interesting stuff. It's interesting when it comes to like IPs, what they did in the 80s.
Oh
It was like
yeah,
nuts. And
the Wild
also, and
West.
I might be wrong assuming this, but it even sounds like it was really more business driven, which makes sense. You know what I mean? But it's not, I don't think it was ever really creatively driven. And that's why it's kind of weird.
Exactly, because a
Yeah.
lot of these things, these decisions were made with the assumption that these would never become global properties. And so there wasn't rights holders in various territories. And so it became this game of like, well, what can we steal and get away with stealing because we own the rights here, even though we don't own the rights there. And like,
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, nowadays it's totally different. And I like how it is nowadays. And it was interesting in the video game era of the 90s where okay, sometimes a game would just be straight up imported and it would be like it would be in Japan, or sometimes they'd bring a game out and just change the title, maybe change some sprites, and and who knows, sometimes that could make the game better, but a lot of times you want the original experience.
I mean, yeah, a great example of that is like the Resident Evil Biohazard thing,
Oh, yeah.
where like, does anybody still call that series Biohazard?
No. And it's interesting, I think in Steam, I could be wrong, or maybe they changed it. It used to be listed as both Resident
Yeah.
Evil and Biohazard in the library, which, yeah, that's, but the story, and I want to say we might have talked about it on your show or something, but the story about how they changed the name, to Resident Evil, and how they were trying to change all these things. And then that's just interesting as their sequels, and it's still named Resident Evil, where Biohazard really makes more sense, but hey.
Yeah. Well, there already was a Biohazard, so it was like, oh well, we can't use Biohazard we have
Oh,
to.
so that's why they changed it in the
Yeah.
first. Okay, yeah,
And it took place in a mansion, and so they were like, "Well, resident." That's a but
yeah. I think that worked because it's a unique name. I mean, when I remember first hearing Resident Evil
it's
and
pretty
seeing the
iconic.
screenshots, yeah, it was, and that, yeah. Okay, so I want to get into some more transforming stuff, but we're gonna go all AUs. Okay,
Love it. I was
most
waiting for
plausible.
some AUs to
Oh,
come
okay,
out.
good. Okay, you're not gonna know any of these except if it's Wing. But okay, anyway, most plausible. The Kyrios from Double O makes sense.
I guess so. I mean,
It's pretty
like
mature.
just knowing what I know about the Curios, you know what I'm surprised is not number one
Hmm.
is the Airmaster from Gundam X. Because the Airmaster literally looks like a jet. Like it looks like a Valkyrie.
I guess I forget what the Airmaster looks like. It looks like, is it the one that attaches to the Gundam X? I completely forget.
No, it's like the red like jet. So it's like the Gundam Leopard is the blue one that's got the
Oh,
Gatling guns, and then the Airmaster is
yes,
Wits. Yeah.
dude, it's so good that you know that you know you're Gundam after.
Look, I don't know anything late UC, but Gundam X,
Yeah, you're right. I need to dive into that more. Okay, here's the next one: the flag. Enact customs from Double O. Can't say I
okay.
necessarily remember too much, but simple transformation that mainly repositions limbs. The resulting flight mode is practical and doesn't require overly complex mechanisms based on real-world fighter jet principles. So,
Well, I can actually speak to, despite having not seen Double O, I can confirm that the overflag is a plausible transformation because I've seen some Gunpla builders on Twitter that have actually created a miniature version of that transformation.
oh,
So like they have like servo motors and things that like retract the arms into flight
oh
mode and stuff
yeah.
like that. And so like I commented, they're all Japanese, of course, and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you speak English, but like, can you tell me where you got servo motors that small? Because I'm trying to do the same thing with a Zeta. No response. So
And Japan's hoarding all the servo motors. It makes sense.
they are, you know.
All right. So in this most plausible list of all, even you see, is the Zeta Gundam. So
Okay. See?
it's up there. So okay, moderately plausible. I don't. I'm curious what you think about this. The Aegis Gundam.
Okay. Yeah, the from Seed.
Yeah. So the transformation into a mobile armor mode with large beam cannon serves a clear tactical purpose, though the crab-like configuration is somewhat awkward. The
That
mechanism
part is
seems,
weird to me that it looks like the
yeah,
Predator. It's like
right. So it is cool that we're calling out here the tactical purpose with those cannons. So
well, okay, so
okay,
this brings up
Memphis
a
and
question. Have you
what's
ever
up?
seen the show Outlaw Star?
No, but I think either you or Ultrana, someone recommended. I started the first episode, and that's it.
So great show, great anime. The ship battles occur because the ships actually have grappling arms.
That's
And
right.
so it's
Yeah.
like, you have ships that have like arms on them that fight. Like I
No,
figured it'd be right up your alley since you love ship combat.
no, I need to finish it. I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes when I'm going to bed, it's like, okay, what anime am I on? And then I just fall asleep. Okay. Methis Rezel's on this. Okay, here we go. Strike Freedom's Dragoon Wings. While not a full transformation, the deployable wing binders represent a reasonable balance of complexity and function. I wouldn't count that.
That does stretch believability, especially when there's so many other transformations that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just jump into less plausible. Curious what you think about that. Or this one, the Wing Gundam Wing Zero. The bird-like transformation is iconic, but mechanically questionable. The wing deployment system in Neo-Bird mode seem to prioritize aesthetics over aerodynamic efficiency.
100%. Yeah.
That's well said, Claude. Okay. Barbados Lupus Rex. The tail transformation adds complexity without clear tactical advantages. The asymmetrical design creates balance issues. Wow. Very specific, but I can't say I'm familiar too much with that.
I
I'm
was
only
gonna
9
say
episodes
that
in.
they're getting real detailed. Like,
Well, let's see what's next. Double Zeta Gundam, we heard that. Okay, least plausible. The God Burning Gundam. This is funny. The erupting Godfinger and various super mode transformations defy physics entirely. More magic than engineering. Well, thanks, AI.
True. Yeah,
But it's true. Okay, Turn A Gundam, the mustache, butterfly wing deployment, and various nanomachine enhanced modes operate on technology so advanced it's essentially fantastical.
well, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a Gundam that can trigger the end of the world, right?
Yeah, that would do it. Okay, the Devil Gundam. Self-regenerating, evolving biomechanical transformation capabilities that completely abandon realistic engineering constraints. So
Again, fantasy.
yeah, so if we get there, there's this next category, absolutely impossible. I'm curious to see what it's going to say.
Yeah.
Any G Gundam suit in super mode. These operate on fighting spirit and hot blood rather than mechanical principles. The transformations often involve energy manifestations and physics-defying changes in mass and structure. I love that because it's like accurate, but I would never even consider this.
No, that sounds like a Redditor, talking about like Star Wars.
Dude, that is right. Yeah, no, I really like that because the Claude that's building this list was doing it based off of. I like the tactical advantage that a suit would get from that.
Yeah.
Because I never really thought about it, like how dumb is a transformation, and dumb meaning like I feel like at any moment how easy you can put yourself at risk in a mobile suit.
Right.
So transforming just ups that. So if you're not getting an advantage, it's going to be a disadvantage. So
true. And so there's different gimmicks that have been employed, right? Like you have transformations, then you have like packs, right? Like the striker pack and that type of stuff.
And Lucas Garrett saying, "Give me the Delta Plus Gundam from Unicorn any day." That's actually a good call. Good call. Okay. All right, we're getting near the end of the show. I wanted to go back and look at some chat to see if there's anything I can make fun of without anyone be able to defend themselves, but that's not true. But no, it's cool to see Ultronymous, Jim Killex, Alan Mitchell. Yeah, good to see all you guys in here. Let's see. TV lowering in front of the fireplace sounds like something out of Xavier's Institute. Actually, that's a good call, Ultronymous. That does for sure. Enthusiast. Shout out Enthusiast. Awesome pictures in the Discord. Char changing clothes is very Sailor Moon. What
it was?
Call? I didn't even.
He should have started spinning and having the ribbons and
then they sing the song, Char, that they sing in Counter Attack. Let's see anything else in here. Okay, Ultronymous is saying WandaVision was neat in the setup for the Multiverse of Madness, but Multiverse of Madness basically undid any and all development Wanda had from said show for classic crazy Wanda. So that's interesting because I didn't watch the Wanda show, but I've heard that is a complaint. And to be honest, that would be legit if since she's a main central character. So then that begs the question, did Sam Raimi get to do whatever he wanted? I wonder if Disney is like, yeah, okay, you can, Sam Raimi.
It sounded like they handed him just a piece of paper that said, here are the 5 plot points that you have to make sure that you hit. Everything else is in your court, which is, they kind of did the same thing with Taika Waititi, right? When it comes to the Thor movies, is they were like, here's where Thor has to be by the end of the movie in order to accommodate the Avengers stuff that we're going to have him do. Everything else, go for it.
It's very fascinating you say that because I feel like that is a very fair and interesting tactic you can use with a creative, but it can also be spoiled by a director, which Taika Waititi might have done that with that latest Thor movie, where it's almost like asking for a juxtaposition as a comedic creator that he is, where if Disney's like, hey, at least do this, or Marvel, it's like, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to go, and I just made up an accent that doesn't exist, but then he's going to go just do all this crazy stuff. Whereas Sam Raimi, I'm not trying to compare the directors, although I think people would fairly say, but Sam Raimi would know what to do, that if it was out of the ordinary, Disney would still be like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's like that discussion where it's like in the boardroom, who runs the creative behind the movie? It's the loudest person. Sometimes that is an executive. Sometimes that's Quentin Tarantino, how does his movies get made? because he's a loud creative that's excited all the time, you know.
Yeah. If
And
he's
maybe
gonna
Sam
put
Raimi's
feet
like,
in that movie, there are gonna be feet in that movie. Okay.
well, maybe he should make the Gundam movie because then there's just giant feet. Yeah, what if he made the Gundam movie and instead of like proper feet, it was actually like toed?
The Gundam has toes.
Yeah. What are we doing? All right, go back down here real quick. Let's see. Oh shoot, does that mean after the Gundam live action movie comes out, we'll have Mobile Suit Gundam versus Godzilla X Kong? Okay. And this is from Alan Mitchell. You know what? If let's say this Gundam movie ends up being some different universe Gundam, then I'm okay with something like that. You might as well. So and that's kind of the thing. Like when I was making my AI story, the beginning of it was just standard Gundam fare. Like, okay. And then I was like, you know what? I'm using these tools. Why don't I just go bizarre? And that's why I had it where the mobile suit turns into this giant thing, blows up the earth, you know.
Well, it's like we talked about with both like G-Quux and Witch from Mercury is like, why set G-Quux in UC at all? Like it doesn't have to be. Or vice versa. Witch from Mercury very well could have been UC and just been like, but
Dude, every time you bring that up more and more, I feel like that is the biggest missed opportunity because they could have given us something just different enough, yet it expands on it. The complaint could be, well, because they would fill in everything. It would, like Witch from Mercury already did, except the background information would be about Zeon and the Federation, and it would make more sense. But you talk about that more on your episode yesterday. So guys, remember, watch that. We're almost done here. So if you haven't, let me go down real quick. I think from Alan mentioned, the Zeta is one of the few transformable suits, reasonable transformable suits in the series. And yeah, I think so. To the point to where, made for animation, not necessarily for a kit. Ultronus, my thought on the Zeta was, how do you relocate the shield and guns while in motion? Well, the intro does it, and it looks sick, where he's like, where he's putting the things on, let's see. Anything else? Okay, Robotech this is from Barry Beebe. Robotech is 3 animes in a trench coat. I didn't know. I thought he was like, oh, here's the facts. I liked how it ended.
No, that's actually a perfect description of it.
Let's see. Wait, Jim Collects is saying, and I don't know what this was in reference to, maybe the Valkyrie, designed by the great Shoji Kawamori, the designer of Optimus Prime. That's a neat fact.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see. I See Dead People. Interesting name. A bit of a spoiler. I don't know if it's necessarily a spoiler, but found it cool. Aside its transformation and modularity, is the EXS is still able to fight minus the core block system and pilot thanks to Alice. Yeah, that's built-in spirit girl consciousness, isn't?
Yeah, AI.
AI. Okay. I get confused with the AIs and spirits.
There's a lot of like dead girls inside of Gundams. That's like a traditional
it
trope.
is. Let's see. Ultron saying Resident Evil has certainly worked out in the long term for sequels. It has.
It's true.
And Al Mitchell, they've been having fun with the Roman numerals in the titles, which I think that's cool because it's almost goofy, but I think that helps it stand out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. OWD 30th, the Arios Gundam, which I think is like kind of like the Kyrios.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else? Alan Mitchell, Tarantino just makes the film adaptation of Two Friends Play. I'm not familiar with that. Two Friends Play? Huh.
I don't know. I like Tarantino just making it all about Big Zam.
Oh. Let's see. This other one from Eugen. Did y'all talk about G-Quux yet? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Eugen, we did a little bit, but we're about to end here. Check out Steven's show from yesterday. We really go all out, and you might even be mad at us.
I think you are. No.
Hourglass is saying his brother just bought the high-grade Sinanju. Dang, what about you? Is your brother going to let you build it? All right, guys. That is it. for this episode of the Gundam Explained show. That was a lot of fun. Thanks all for joining. It was a lot of fun talking about Gundam. We'll be back next week with some more. Please check out GundamExplained.com and subscribe to the newsletter. And that goes out every Friday. And then, Steven, anything else to add?
No, man. Have a great weekend, y'all. This has been fun.
Yeah, that's right. See y'all later.